All right, I call to order the regular City Council meeting for Monday, November 21st at 5:30 in City Council chambers. Please, for respect out of others in the audience, silence your cell phones to limit interruptions. Let's move on with the roll call.
Evans.
Here.
Janser.
Here.
Olson. Here. Pittner.
Here.
Quadrigula.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Striley.
Let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And at this time, I would call Chaplain Brian Walls up to the front, along with Scott Burlingame, to take his oath of office.
Right here?
Space. Yep, you'll lose space right there, so pick it up. So, actually, we'll do it the other way.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Yep,
Okay.
there you go. So, here, I'll get the lines out so I can say them right for you. I state your name,
I, Scott Burlingame,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
and the Constitution of the State of North Dakota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of City Alderman
of the office of City Alderman
for the City of Minot, North Dakota,
for the City of Minot, North Dakota,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Welcome. Thank you.
And welcome to the council, Scott. Moving on to item 4, which is the mayor's report. Since the last city council meeting, I've had more than a few meetings that I attended, including a very special morning with some second graders at Lewis and Clark, chamber board meeting, Excel annual meeting, some meetings with the task force, and traveled to Washington for the North Dakota Military National Guard Congressional Reception, and ended with the Heartland Association of Fairs, Festivals, and Events up at the Grand. They had a good convention up there this last week. So if there's no questions or comments, move on to item number 5, which is the city manager's report.
Mr. Mayor, council members, first of all, happy Thanksgiving week. I outlined a report, as is customary in the memo that's included as part of the council packet. I'd be happy to answer any questions any of the council has on any of the material covered in there.
So in case you notice, it snowed since the last time we
It
met.
has.
Can you give us an update, because if I've been hearing from people, other people have been hearing from people, on both the enforcement of the ordinance for private sidewalks and the city-maintained sidewalks?
Yeah, so myself and staff have been working on both of those issues here recently. I do have a little bit of a update on progress on that in the city manager memo. And I think I covered it a little bit in the city manager memo for the last council meeting as well. We had a meeting with staff and several of our community partners that have one, a high pedestrian potential need, but also have a lot of responsibility of property that they own. That would be good partners in that. And so we did meet last week and discuss some of that. We're in the process of considering whether or not we should create a pedestrian snow route similar to our street snow routes, and that there would be certain sidewalks within the community that are high priority that need to be cleaned early so there's pedestrian access throughout the community. And that's what that group is working on doing right now. That group is working on getting the sidewalks that they own and are responsible for outlined on a map that we can have in a GIS format. That includes city staff as well as identifying the sidewalks that we as the city are responsible for and own, outlined on that map as well. And then we'll see how those come together and whether or not any pedestrian routes make any sense with that regard. The second aspect would be the snow removal, and so coordinating with them that if they are identified on a pedestrian route, that they would be committed to making sure snow is removed off of that, as well as any private property owners that are included on that route. And then the city would also obviously need to be good faith partners in that endeavor as well. I've also had meetings with Chief Klug and our Community Development Director, Mr. Billingsley, to also talk about how we can do a better job in actual enforcement throughout the community as well. My personal opinion is that we need to make sure that we as the city are doing our example first before we go out and start enforcing on private property owners' responsibilities. And so the Public Works Director and I have also had some conversations about that, and we're exploring some options on how we could potentially do that. Obviously, our Public Works staff does a great job and work very diligently on the streets, but we have limited resources with that. And again, we're working on some alternatives that we can bring back maybe for council consideration to help us expedite the process of removing snow off of those city streets. So between that conversation with Mr. Jonason as the Public Works Director, and then with Chief Klug and Mr. Billingsley, we're trying to approach this from a couple different angles to make it work for the best that we can for the community and get those sidewalks cleaned and clear in a more expeditious fashion for the community.
And certainly, I mean, I hope it's not just trying to figure it out in the confines of what we have. If, like, you know, the working group or you or the Public Works Director need to come and ask for a budget amendment to help, you know, if we need to get private contractors or whatever for some of these high, you know, volume pedestrian routes, please come. And I don't know what, I know what I would do, but I can't speak for the rest of us. But like, this is, you know, an issue that I care a lot about, and I think a lot of people in our community do. So if that is found to be the most, you know, expeditious route, like, bring it here, and we'll try and make that happen.
Appreciate that.
Steve?
Echoing what Carrie said, wanted to follow up publicly and ask what citizens should do if there is a house or piece of property in their neighborhood that is egregiously uncleared. Should they use the website to lodge a complaint? Should they call the police? Should they call Public Works, or whom?
I believe the best route would be is filing something through the city's website that automatically goes to the staff that's responsible for that. But if that's not working, then they can call my office and we'll try to figure that out. And that process is still going to be needed even if we create the pedestrian routes, because all the pedestrian routes does is that's going to prioritize certain sidewalks throughout the community, and staff will be more proactive in enforcing snow removal on those pedestrian routes. But the remaining sidewalks are still subject to the city ordinance, but that would be on a complaint basis only. And so that process needs to happen, and if people are filling out complaints on the website and don't feel like it's getting anywhere, then please call my office and I'll follow up and make sure that process is working correctly.
Thank you. That makes it clear to people. Thank you.
Anything else?
No further questions on that. I have nothing further to report this evening.
Thank you, Harold. Moving on to item number 6, public hearing on the Signal District 2022-1, presented by Lance Meyer.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Over the 30-day protest period for this district, we did receive one protest letter. The owner had a couple of parcels within the district. It's about 4% or so of the district area, which is not sufficient to bar proceeding with the district. So after you conclude your public hearing, I just wanted you to be aware that this project can move forward if you so choose. And there's another agenda item on the consent agenda to keep this process moving. So depending on what you decide on that item, this project will either stop or keep going. But I just want to let you know that there was not enough protests to bar the project from proceeding through the district.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of Lance? Anyone? Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
This is a time now we open it up for comments. people speaking for or against the traffic signal district? If you have any comments, now's your time. Second call for comments, either for or against. Last call. No comments. What are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll close the public hearing and advance this item due to the insufficient protest.
We have a motion by Paul. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any further comments?
I don't have a comment, but Lance, I should, can you like just come give like a 1-minute synopsis of what this is all doing and, yeah. that's-
Mr. Mayor and Alderwoman Evans, are you looking for just what is the project?
Yeah.
Sure. So this assessment district was petitioned for by Trinity Health.
Okay, wait, tell us what an assessment district is.
So an assessment district is a project, it's a public project that assess the cost of the infrastructure to the benefiting properties.
Okay,
So this can be for water and sewer, it can be for streets, it can be for traffic signals, it can be for flood control. There's a whole list of things that in Century Code that you can special assess, okay? So with that being said, Trinity Health had petitioned the city of Minot to install the traffic signal that's required as part of their project to the benefiting area. So what we as staff did is we looked at where is this traffic signal and what the benefiting area would be. This signal is on the half-mile line, and there's a signal at 16th Street, which is on the other half-mile line, and in the future, there'll likely be one at 30th Street. So the district area, if you went a quarter mile on each side of the intersection, would be halfway between any potential signal that would be in that area. So we felt that was a fair benefiting area. And then we drew a box, and then all the parcels that were inside of that half-mile by half-mile square box would be included in the assessment district. And then the cost of the project would be special assessed by the square foot to each parcel that's in that district. Came out to, our estimated cost is about 9 cents a square foot for properties within that district.
9 or 90?
9 cents.
9 cents.
Yep. And then the way that this works is there's a series of resolutions that council has to pass to advance the district. And so after the protest period expired, which is where we're at tonight, there's not enough protest to stop the district. So the next step would be to authorize staff to proceed with a contract with an engineer to design the project. And then eventually we'd come back and you would have the option to approve those plans and then authorize a call for bids. We'd publicly bid the project if you so choose. We'd award the bid to a contractor, build the project, and then all the costs are totaled. They're sent to the Special Assessment Commission, who then allocates the benefit to the parcels. That's certified by them and by council, and then it goes to the county auditor for assessment to property taxes. That's the entire process.
and anybody within that box you draw can protest, correct?
They can protest.
Yep.
So Century Code tells us we have to take a map of the district, plus the resolution that you passed. We published that twice, which we did. And in addition, we send a letter, regular mail, to each address that we have on file at the city is like an extra step to help make sure people are notified.
Thank you, that's perfect.
Okay?
Very-
Yes.
Anything else?
Lance, real quick, what percentage of people in the protest period, and for this process, for it to get shut down at this process, what percentage, 51%?
It has to be a majority, so anything over 50%.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lance.
Question, because so approximately, like how many parcels or like entities were in that square?
I think it's close to 40-ish. I'd have to look, it's in the engineer's report, which is attached to one of the last
Yeah, I did
agenda
see- yeah.
items. Yeah, I think it's around 40 or 50.
Okay. Thanks, I swear
you,
I won't
Lance.
make you come up again. Maybe on something else.
Go ahead. Any other discussion? If not, please call the roll.
Bittner,
Yes.
Paugugula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Moving on to item 7, which is consent. We do have one item that was pulled, 7.10. That is pulled off the agenda. Also pulling for separate consideration will be 7.8. Is there anything else that needs to be pulled from the consent? Anything? If not, what are the wishes of the council?
Move approval on remaining items.
Motion by Paul, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any discussion? If not, call the roll.
Bittner,
Yes.
Paugugula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Moving on to item 7.8, the Traffic Signal District 2022-1, direct preparation of plans and specifications. What are the wishes of the council?
So move.
Who was that? Mark? Motion by Mark. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. This is the traffic signal that we just approved in the public hearing. I don't believe that there was sufficient protests. I think there was only one protest. That's about 4% of the district. I don't think it was sufficient on those grounds to deny that special assessment district, but I won't be supporting this. I don't believe that it's a responsible thing on my part to do. This traffic study was done in 2017 when those permits were pulled. The applicant who applied for the special assessment district was fully aware that that improvement had to be made due to their development prior to a certificate of occupancy being awarded. Now, 5 years later, at the 11th hour, we're being asked to approve a special assessment district to all the surrounding taxpayers and increase the financial burden on them. So again, I don't feel in good conscience I can approve a special assessment district for this item. But I did approve it through the public hearing because I don't believe we had the grounds to stop it at that point. This is why I pulled this item.
Any other comments? No other comments? Please call the roll. Oh, go ahead. Scott?
I'm new at this, I apologize. Lance, can I ask you a couple more questions? Thank you. First off, can you explain a little bit, as Paul talked about, a little bit of the history of this intersection and how we got to where we are today?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Burlingame, so this project is obviously, as we all know, it's unique. This parcel was platted and zoned back in 2009. Okay. So it didn't follow the typical development process that we see on most developments today, where an applicant comes in with a plat and a rezone, and we have a developer's agreement, and all these things are spelled out. So, this project is kind of developed over the last decade or so. So back in 2017, staff required a traffic study be done, just like we do in all major developments. So, as an example, the new high school in North Minot, we required a traffic study. There's a shipping company that wanted to set up shop in North Minot. We required a traffic study. So any major development where we think there's going to be a significant increase in traffic, we require a study. What we generally require in those studies is any impact that a project may have, the developer needs to mitigate those impacts, right? So if you need to add lighting or lengthen turn lanes, like what Minot Public had to do, or if traffic signals are warranted, like what Walmart had to put in, both for the existing store and the proposed one that was on North Hill. Those sort of things are included in the approvals. And so that's what we did on this. We said that, okay, we approve your traffic study with this condition, that you need to have this signal installed by the time you open your doors. And so we approved that traffic study in September of 2017. So it's been a long time for this project just because of its size and its scope. it's a longer development period than what you'll typically see in a more standard development.
Can I continue, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
In the history of Minot, have we ever approved a special assessment district for a traffic signal like this?
This is our first traffic signal. We've done water and sewer districts, we've done paving districts for developers. So we've done other assessment projects. This is our first traffic signal, though.
And, sorry, can I continue?
Yep, it's yours until you
All right.
give it back.
Thanks, sorry. I'm new at this, a few minutes. Also, what would you say, or do you have a number off the top of your head? What's the total economic impact that the city has paid for in order to bring infrastructure to where Trinity is currently at?
Well, over the years, the city has installed, I think it's just over $36 million to help develop the surrounding area in southwest Minot. So the new water tower that just went up, we've looped water mains, we've installed a 5-lane concrete road for 37th Avenue. We've done a major sewer extension into southwest Minot. So, you total up all these projects, and it's a pretty significant number.
All right, that's all the questions I have for you, Lance. Thank you.
Certainly.
Well, since you're up here, I have one more.
Okay?
Will Trinity is part of the special assessment district, correct?
That's correct.
Right, so when that final number is, it will be put on their bill as well?
Yes, they'll have
On their
a
square
significant
footage.
portion of the
Right.
cost, yes.
So it's not, property owners that are just adjacent. It will be their facility based on the square footage and the final cost. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Lance? Comments? Any further comments on the motion? Go ahead, Scott.
I will join Paul, and I will be on this because I just feel like I don't want to necessarily go down the line of beginning a new special assessments, especially considering the history of this property.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last meeting, through our Magic Fund, process and agenda item, we extended a $300,000 portion of our offer to be forgivable if that were to be completed by Trinity. And I'll look, have we had a response to this point?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Pittner, I have not received any formal response yet. The response I've had from some of the Trinity staff I've spoken with is they're still processing and considering.
Thank you, and if I may continue. Yep. Completely understandable. At the very least, I'm going to vote no on this, but at the very least, I feel it would be appropriate, if nothing else, to table this item until after we had a response from them, at the very least, because that changes, I guess, that whole agenda item from 2 weeks ago as well, and how that might look. So I'm still going to vote no on this, but again, I think a response would be warranted as well.
Any other comments? If not, go ahead, Steve.
Question for Lance, sorry.
Bless his heart.
I don't mean to make things more complicated or be unnecessarily critical, but you mentioned that in the past when developers have wanted to develop property, they have been asked to and agreed, or maybe even volunteered at times, to pay for those improvements. Am I correct in that understanding?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Padrigula, yes.
Okay, so for example, when Walmart wanted to go up at the north end of town on 20th Avenue and the bypass near where the high school is now, if I remember correctly, and this is what I want to check out, they offered to signalize that intersection and dramatically improve it, something which we ended up doing at our own expense, or maybe the State Highway Department's expense, I forget whose expense. But the developer, in that case Walmart, offered to fix up that intersection to allow the extra traffic, to handle the extra traffic that was very much expected. Is that correct, too?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Padrigula, that's correct.
Do you remember if we paid or the state paid for that intersection?
We did.
The city did? Okay, even though it's a U.S. highway, partly?
Yes, and the main reason is essentially it's the city's traffic that would generate the need for the traffic signal. So, the DOT is going to build improvements to satisfy the needs on the state highway system, but it's because the city made the connection of 21st Avenue across the bypass and the development that caused the traffic signal to be warranted. Therefore, it's our cost to install.
So in a sense, what you're saying is there's a strong precedent for developers to improve the property on their own, and that would support what Paul and Scott are arguing for.
In Minot, North Dakota, yes. In other cities in North Dakota, special assessments are the common way of doing infrastructure development for developments. It's just it's a financing tool that is used by other communities, and we have a different direction of doing that. But it's, either way is fine. I mean, the cost is the cost of the
Right.
signal. It's how you want to allocate the benefit.
And if I also recall correctly, in eastern cities, particularly Fargo, they rely on special assessments as a major source of funding, and homeowners are often hit with extraordinarily high special assessment bills to pay for street lighting or street improvements or sewers or things like that, amounts that are way, way beyond what their normal taxes would be. So taxes stay low, but special assessments get them in the end.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Padrigula, I don't know if it's, leaps and bounds above any other cost. I mean, if Minot builds a signal versus Fargo, it's generally going to be the same price. It's just
Right,
a different way of paying for it.
right. But what I'm saying is the property taxes, you can anticipate at least, whereas special assessments may come very abruptly. In this case, 9 cents a square foot is not going to be a whole lot of money probably for the people who own property in the area, but it's something they didn't count on, and it's something apparently they can't deduct off their taxes either.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Paul?
One more question, Lance. In 2017, when this traffic study was done, give me a ballpark. I'm not going to hold you to these numbers. What's the cost of that traffic signal when that study was done, and that was known that needed to be part of the project versus today's dollars?
I think, 5 years ago, obviously steel and everything was a lot cheaper. We're probably $250, $275, and now, we just bid a traffic signal for 16th Avenue and 16th Street in Southwest Minot, and that came in at $312. I think on this one, we estimated, I want to say around $350 for the signal, plus there's some sidewalk improvements and striping that needs to be done, plus your engineering and contingencies and administrative fees that we put on the signal. So now it's a $560,000 bill or something like that.
So just about doubled, almost?
Yeah, only because in a city project, we include all these fees in the assessment, right? Where as a private developer, they don't have some of the other costs that we have, the administration costs and the advertising costs and, the engineering. They can work with that engineer on a scope and fee that may be different than what we charge. So it is different.
Lisa?
Not a question for Lance, just a comment.
Okay, thank you.
I am struggling with this for two reasons. First, the property owners in the area were given the opportunity to protest this, and 4% of the property owners, protested it. So obviously, most don't have a lot of heartburn about seeing this assessment. So I have to take that into consideration. And I was a teacher. I don't have a business degree, but I don't think you need a business degree to understand that all of the new properties, all of the new businesses that are being built in that area are there because the hospital is in that area as well. They can see the potential. They know that it's a good location to be in. So I think that they are going to benefit from having that traffic signal there. So even though I think we probably should hold true to discussions that happened a number of years ago, I think when we're voting on it in 2022, I'm going to lean towards the assessment.
Any other comments? Paul?
Real quick, Lance. What, I didn't know where you went. What percentage does the applicant own of the protest area?
4%.
Sorry, I was out of breath. It's in the 20s, so it's significantly below half.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gun shy.
You're gun shy now, aren't you?
There until we vote.
Go ahead, Scott.
So with the fact that some of those lands that are part of this are owned by the county, the city gets those expenses, what is the amount of that we would have in that situation?
As soon as, Mr. Mayor and Alderman Burlingame, as soon as the assessment is certified, there's a portion that's outside city limits, so the city will pay that assessment. We hold it in abeyance, so we pay on that, I think it's like $28,000. And then we pay on that, and then when that property would annex into the city of Minot, we would create an assessment district. It's not protestable. And then we would assess that property, that portion of the assessment that's outside city limits.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? If not, call the roll.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
No.
Quadrigula,
Yes.
Ross,
No.
Burlingame,
No.
Evans.
Yes.
Moving on to action items. 8.1, the Water Sewer Department Hydro Excavator, the award of bid. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Motion by Lisa for approval. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Carrie. Any discussion? Any further discussion? If
Can
not,
I
go ahead.
just clarification, and I got it, but just so the public knows. So when I saw the memo and it said reserves, wanted to remind people that each department has their reserves. This is coming specifically out of one of those public works reserve funds, not the sort of general one. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Carrie. No further comments? Please call the roll.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Quadrigula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Moving on to item 8.2 under the action items. Police Department Budget Amendment for Pound Services, presented by, what are the wishes of the council?
I move approval.
Motion by Scott, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Any discussion? Any further discussion?
Yes.
Oh, Steve, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I had a question for the chief. John, wanted to ask you, to what extent is our pound fees figured into the animal licensing fee that we charge animal owners? And since our costs are going to be have gone up and probably will go up in the future, will you be looking at an increase in those fees to cover the costs?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Alderman Pajagula, I think our licensing fees we're currently looking at them, they're inadequate. And that's leading to bigger problems with just getting compliance with licensing. So that will probably come before council with an ordinance change sometime in the near future. So it's not considered at all in there because of that. And when we figure the budget, we go off of best guess. We look at the past 5 years and see what we've done. This year we've had a significant number of animals compared to prior years. So that's pushed our budget up above what we would normally see.
Do you see the two kind of covering for each other, or do you see them as being totally unconnected?
I see them unconnected personally.
You do?
Just because they're unless we charge a high amount for those licenses, I don't know that it would make up for it in any way.
Do you have any rough idea of how much licenses bring in?
I don't, not off the top of my head.
But it's not close to the 30,000 that was costing us this year?
No. Mr. Mayor, Alderman Pajagula, I think, like I said, it's, I don't think that ordinance has been changed in the past 30 years for license fees. So city manager and I have had discussions about that. And it's definitely something I'm looking at. I've got what other communities are doing around the state, and there are some advances in technology, obviously, with chipping and that kind of thing, and there are different things that are considered. So I think I want to look at it from the whole ordinance and fix the problem, and then I think we could readdress it as, is that a way to offset some of those costs?
Or maybe the animal retrieval fee should be used to offset the pound storage fee, if you will, or the placement fee. Okay, yeah, when you come back to this, that's one thing I'd be curious to see how other cities handle it, because it seems like, if you benefit from the pound services, you should pay for them.
Yeah.
If that saves your dog from getting euthanized, that would be worth a lot of money, I would think, to many people. And be a nice insurance policy for those people who don't let their dogs run loose too, knowing that they could count on prompt retrieval and good care while the animal is confined.
Agree.
Thank you.
Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, do you and your animal control officers have any sense of this large increase of animals that you're dealing with? Is it because of a higher population of animals in town? Is it because your enforcement is increased? Why this big increase all of a sudden?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Alderman Janser, I guess I don't have a good sense of what that would be. There have been some points where I know, like South Valley Animal Shelter is closed for a period of time to do some work on their facility, and that pushes them obviously to other facilities. But I don't know that there's anything that I can point at specifically and say, yeah, that's the cause. And I've had conversations with their staff as well recently, and just talking about how we can build a relationship where we can rely on them to help when we're at those moments, because we have times where the pound is completely full and we have no place to put an animal, so we're stuck trying to figure that out. So we have been in discussion about what does this look like moving forward. If the rate of animals continues to be high like it has been this year, how do we work together to accomplish this? So those conversations are also being had.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just as I do with every pound issue, I'll be voting against this, not because I don't believe in it, but I am adamant that we move towards providing more shelter services to dogs that are in our care and control as a city and not the pound. And so I will continue voting against things that involve our pound until we can move towards a more humane and compassionate way to deal with the animals that the city has in its control.
You, John? No other comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans,
Nope.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Pittner,
Yes.
Quadrigula,
Yes.
Ross.
Yes. Moving on to 8.3, the approval of benefit consulting and broker services for Brown & Brown. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Moved by Paul, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark. Discussion. Any discussion? Not call the roll.
Pittner,
Yes.
Quadrigula,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Burlingame,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Janser,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Moving on to 8.4, City Hall retaining wall engineering contract amendment 4398. What are the wishes of the council?
Move approval.
Moved by Lisa, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mark, discussion. Steve?
I'd like to ask Lance to give us an update. He and I have talked privately about this. It's been frustrating to drive by for all these months and see this thing not completed, and you gave me a very nice explanation, but I think it's a big enough project, enough money is involved here where the public needs to be informed about what's going on and who's paying for it or not paying for it.
Certainly. Mr. Mayor and Alderman Quadrigula, in essence, the project's behind and several months behind. There's been quite a few issues over the course of the summer that our consulting engineers made the contractor aware of. Some items they've been slower to fix than others. Some things are, a fabrication issue that have had to be worked through. That's taken some time. Some of the piles that have been installed are out of tolerance. And because of that, we've had to do some calculations to make sure that it still meets the design intent, which it does. However, the way that the panels, the concrete panels are connected to those piles, that needs to change. So the contractors had to hire a consulting engineer that's separate from ours to help them redesign the connections that are needed to connect those panels to the steel. So all that takes time. The panels are produced, they're ready to go. It's just now figuring out how they would attach the wall to make sure that when those panels are attached, that we get a good product. And like I was explaining to Alderman Padragula the other day, the way that these walls work is the actual retaining structure is what you see today. So it's the steel piles that are driven into the ground. There's a steel cable that's drilled into the soil behind it that pins the piles back. And then those wood boards, or we call them legging, that goes between the piles. That's the actual retaining wall. And then there's concrete finished panels that have a design on them that'll be painted. Those attached to the front of that wall just to give it a more attractive appearance. And so that's the part right now that has to be reworked some. So that has to be done. Hopefully we can start yet this winter. If not, that'll be pushed to the spring. There's a water main that's cast iron that has to be replaced around the east side of the building. And then the parking lot, which is well over 50 years old, has served its life and now needs to be replaced. So that work has to be done as well. So at this point, with all that work left remaining, we're anticipating that this project probably goes into June, which is why the engineering amendment is in front of you, because obviously that was not part of our scope. The completion date, I think, was actually last Friday, which obviously they didn't meet. And September 1st was a milestone completion date. They had to have parts of that project completed by then. That hasn't happened. So we charge them liquidated damages at $2,100 a day until those items are met. And then that cost helps to offset our additional costs as a city to, have consulting engineers on for longer. Did that answer your question, Alderman Padragula?
So will the overall cost to the taxpayers still remain the same as originally bid?
That's correct.
So the contractor is absorbing their and other people's unsuccessful contracting and constructing?
That's correct. So this is, everyone shares in risk in projects, right? And the constructability things, the items that the contractor bids, that's in their control. We don't build the project. So, these are their issues they need to help figure out.
So the taxpayers will not be on the hook for this extra time and expense and material and engineering?
Nothing that we've done so far would cause these sort of delays.
Okay. It also sounds like having the consulting engineer has saved us a lot of grief in terms of them spotting this problem and us forcing the contractor to remediate it before some disaster happened in the future.
Yeah, and this is why we hire, consultants for these specialized projects, so they can be our eyes and ears in the field, because if we didn't have people there monitoring these sort of things, we wouldn't know. We'd get to the end of the project, there'd be problems that wouldn't be addressed, and the longevity of our improvement that everyone's paying for wouldn't be there, right? So that's why it's important to have these projects staffed to the appropriate level so that we as taxpayers are getting our money's worth.
Will there be any hazards with the project not being done through springtime when it tends to rain more around here? Is the hill safe and secure at this point?
It is. Yep,
Okay.
it's retained. So the structure of the wall is doing what it's intended to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Lance? Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome.
If there's nothing else, please call the roll.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padragula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Janser?
Yes.
Moving on to 8.5, HCM HR Software Solution and Implementation Services. What are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move the item.
Moved by Mark,
Second.
second by Paul. Is there any discussion? Any discussion?
Just a question for Lisa. I guess, first of all, another expression of sympathy over the position you and your department have been in with the problems we've had with contractors. I know predicting, especially the future, is kind of risky. What is your take on ADP being able to handle this and us getting the kind of system we've hoped for quite a few years?
Mr. Mayor and Alderman Padregula, we took a little bit different approach on how we handled looking for this particular vendor. After our initial situation happened with the previous vendor, we actively started looking at vendors and contacting them ourselves versus waiting for the RFP to answer questions for us. So for the last 5 months, we've actually been looking at various vendors to see what would meet our needs versus what someone says they can provide to us. ADP is also the vendor that has been used by the Park District. That is where we took our first initial step in looking at their products to see how it met their needs, how it was user-friendly for their employees, user-friendly for their staff, and that was one of the reasons that we did contact ADP. We actively reached out to 3 vendors with our RFP, the vendors that we were actually looking at that we felt were good for this, for our organization itself. So
And if
I'm confident that this will be a good fit for us.
I sure hope so.
I do too.
And if I remember correctly, ADP is this humongous software company that does this kind of stuff all over the world. So if anybody would be reliable, it seems like they should be.
Yes,
I've even heard of them, which says something.
That is correct. And also, we are large enough so that we will have our own dedicated account manager, which is very helpful for us.
That's what I remember reading, yeah. And their office is in they have an office in Bismarck?
Not ADP, no. That's my benefit consultant.
Oh, okay, maybe I was confused. Thank you, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Don't come back again.
We hope not to.
No.
Any other questions, comments for Lisa? Thank you, Lisa. If there is nothing else, please call the roll.
Janser?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Pittner?
Yes.
Padregula?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Burlingame?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Moving on to 8.6, the Union Silos Public Art Project Presentation.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Bauman, and I'm one of the community builders, co-organizers for the Union Silos Public Art Project. Thank you for the time to be here today. Our goal, if we can go to the next slide, please, is to tell you a little bit about what the Union Silos Project is, explain what our efforts is, and to ask for a letter of support for a Main Street Initiative grant through the North Dakota Department of Commerce. For folks who are watching and folks who are listening to this online, this is not a request for funding from the city. It is merely a letter of support for us as we move forward and seek some other funding for the project. So next slide, please. What is the Union Silos Project? Union Silos is an effort to paint the grain silos located at 318 First Avenue Northeast and turn them into North Dakota's largest public work of art. For those listening and watching who are not great with directions, those are the grain silos just behind Souris River Brewing. They are on the east side of 3rd Street Northeast, just before it goes over the bridge. This is an opportunity to activate our downtown infrastructure, especially infrastructure that's not being used in any other way right now. And it is community supported and volunteer led. So this is, again, not a request for city funding. It is organized by volunteers, and we're working to fundraise the money that is needed for this. To tell you a little bit about the project and how we got here, we have approached an artist named Guido van Helten. He's an Australian-born visual artist and photographer, and he has completed over 50 murals across the world, and he's internationally renowned. Part of the reason this artist was attractive to us is because of his monuments project that's happening here in the States. He's worked in 7 different states. He creates one work of art on a large structure, whether it be a grain silo or some other sort of retired or non-used industrial structure, and this would be the one project for North Dakota. And he's worked in Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kansas, and Texas, and is working on a contract in Wisconsin. So we're kind of filling in the gap in the upper Midwest and creating a network of works across that. Next slide, please. Here's an example of one of his works in Faulkton, South Dakota. We included the tractor for size reference. So you can see this is a very specialized task and trait. And you can imagine seeing one of these in downtown Minot or an image as put forth by our community. Next slide. This is from Nashville, Tennessee. You can see that that is what the artist did there. Again, an old industrial agricultural structure. Great. Next slide, please. Why Minot? It's a great question that we've been asked a lot as we've reached out to community groups and community stakeholders. The artist, like we said, is working on putting one piece of art in every state of the 50 United States. So he chose Minot after we reached out to him. He said that this is the perfect small to mid-sized community. He appreciated the proximity to both the North Dakota capital in Bismarck and the Canadian border to the north. And in particular, he appreciated the strong local arts presence. In his words, I want to draw people who like art to Minot and fall in love with the arts community that already exists here. Next slide, please. What will it look like? We don't actually know what the finished product of the Union Silos project will look like. However, the commissioning group does have final say over the images that are used, and we'll have an idea before it starts being painted on the silos of what will be happening. But one of the reasons why we were really intrigued with this artist is because part of his process is that he works and engages with the community to take photographs, to hear oral stories, to find out the history, basically what makes a community like Minot tick, and then he uses that as his inspiration for the mural. So there will be community workshops, there will be local artist collaboration, there will be some photography and some videography, some telling of stories and the history of Minot, and all of that will go into informing this project. Next slide. How do we get there? So this total project will cost $350,000, and that includes all of the artist fees, it includes lodging, it includes equipment rental, it includes community outreach, it includes all of the specialized paint, all of that is wrapped into that. As organizers, we have mapped out our fundraising pathways to make sure that this is something that we can do, and we've kind of set some goals for ourselves to make sure that we can do this and we stay on task throughout the total scope of the project. Also, we are partnering with the Minot Area Council of the Arts. They are not paying for this. However, they are serving as our fiscal agent, which means that all donations and contributions are tax deductible through their 501c3 status. Next slide, please. Here is the timeline. We just announced this project formally in October of 2022. However, we've been in talks with the artist since the fall of 2020. So with all of that in mind, we're now in the stage where we're presenting to key groups, and community workshops will hopefully be beginning soon. And then the artist will be on site off and on throughout the next couple of months to do that research phase of engaging with our community. We'll also be starting our primary fundraising period here and have worked with stakeholders already for that. And then in May or early summer of 2023, we expect that the artist will be here and begin painting on the projects. And our goal, obviously working with an independent contractor, sometimes there are delays as we just experienced, but our goal is that by September, October of 2023, this project will be completed. So it's an ambitious project, it's an ambitious time for fundraising, but we are excited that hopefully by this time next year it will be finished. Next slide, please. We have a couple statements of support that you can go ahead and read, but these are from leaders within our tourism and industry and business development community. Basically, to sum it up, it basically says this is about creating a place in Minot. It's more than just a work of art. It is something that is attractive to people, to bring them to downtown, to experience our community, something that makes us stand apart from other communities our size or in our region, and something that we hope will draw people here to visit, but also will draw people here to call home. Next slide, please. How to help. So just for the general public and for people who may be watching at home or are here in the room, we would ask you to consider a financial gift. We break this down, it's about $6 per every person in Minot. So that isn't too much if we go by per person. Obviously, some people won't contribute and others will be able to contribute more. But we do encourage everyone to make a financial gift as they're able if they feel so compelled. Our website is ndunionsilos.com. Also, we would encourage people to find us on our social media accounts on Instagram and Facebook at ND Union Silos. And we encourage people, when the artist is here on site, to please be engaged in the process of making sure that we have all of our stakeholders, whether it's elected officials or people who are new to Minot. We want everyone to be able to contribute to this basically self-portrait of our community. And I believe with that, we are done with the presentation. So I'd be happy to stand for any questions or clarify any points that I can do.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. This is so exciting. I'm very excited to see this start to happen. Is there kind of a time frame as to how long the art will be able to stay vivid and beautiful, and how long has it been on other structures that he has painted on?
That's a great question. So the artist Guido is about my age, 36, and so we don't know the longevity beyond about a decade or so, but we are expecting anywhere from 20 to probably 40 years of longevity on this structure. We don't have a touch-up or a return to, well, I think a touch-up campaign is probably the right way to say it, budgeted into this project yet. But the idea is that after about 10 to 20 years, there probably would be one more public solicitation for about $10,000 to $20,000 to just go back in, refresh and everything. But the artist is using specialized paints designed for outdoor concrete surfaces. He knows about North Dakota and about winter here, so he is very ready to install this for the next generation or two of Minot residents.
Okay. And then just one follow-up question real quick. Do we know the silos are going to stay there? I don't know.
We do.
Okay.
And I can say we've worked very closely with the property owner. There's a company called Pretty Lights that owns it for storage, and they're very supportive of this project. They're intending to keep the structure here. The structure is sound for at least the next 50 years, and we have worked with city manager and our public works director to ensure that this is not part of the flood project or flood protection buyout. The other silos that we had initially looked at were across the street, what used to be the old Bridgman milk jugs. Those will not be around. So these will be staying put, and they're privately owned, and the owner is in support of it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Mark?
Thank you. Just out of curiosity, do you know, or is the image, is the art going to be on the rounded part of the structure, or on the more squarish looking piece to the left, or both?
We expect it to be on both and then all four sides. So you will see it from north, south, east, west.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Steve?
I'm really excited about this. I mean, it seems kind of strange. It is kind of strange, but there's a precedent for it. I remember seeing a program on television within the past couple of years of something very similar in Toledo, Ohio. And in fact, when I saw your proposal, I thought immediately it's a different artist, but same idea, same general scheme. And what happened in Toledo was they had a series of old grain silos by the river, many more than this. I guess actually Toledo was a pretty big shipping port in its heyday, and now is part of the, quote, Rust Belt, close quote. And a group of women, I think you'd call them socialites perhaps, would cruise down the river, and they would see these dilapidated structures, and they thought, wait a second, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be some way we can reuse these. And they did the groundwork, and they found this artist, I think is from Australia actually, who specializes in very similar stuff, and he's done some really striking paintings on the silos there by the river. If I remember correctly, they were mostly sunflowers, which actually would be quite suitable motif around here. But they tremendously brightened up that part of Toledo and have become a tourist attraction and really countered that vibe that was going out that Toledo is a dead city. So I think something like this really has a lot of potential. When you think of the great cities in the world, we're not in that league, obviously, but we can try within our own limits. They all have monumental structures. I mean, perhaps the most famous one being the Statue of Liberty in New York City, the Eiffel Tower in Paris, the Egg in Chicago. Things like that can help define a community and create a lot of interest and appreciation for the arts and what's unique about the community. So I'm very excited about this. I think it has a tremendous amount of potential. I would have never thought of it myself, but you're certainly not the only ones. Quote, the ladies who lunch, close quote, or cruise the water in Toledo came up with a similar idea, and it's done stunningly well. So I hope we can have a good outcome for this too.
Any other comments? Scott?
Mr. Baumann, thank you. This is the third time I've heard this presentation in 2 weeks, and each time you've done well. And I've heard this answer, but I want everybody else. Can you give us an example of, in some surrounding states, of some of the work he's done and what your impressions of it have been?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we showed the example from Faulkton, South Dakota. Mankato, Minnesota is another one that several people around the community have traveled there. On Highway 169 as you approach Mankato from the north. That was my first experience with this artist and his work. I can tell you that it is simply stunning and captivating. The work that he did in McKinney, Texas, which is one of his most recent projects, NPR did a story on it, basically saying that it was a self-portrait of the community and the pride that the community took in being able to tell their story and be able to show the world kind of who they are, what makes them tick, is incredibly powerful. And his work and his process I have heard nothing but positive things on all of it. So again, Mankato, Minnesota is probably the closest, or Faulkton, South Dakota. I would encourage people to check those out. And if you go to ndunionsilos.com, there is a link to the artist's page, and you can see all of his work from across the world.
And one of the advantages or cool things about this, obviously, there's no way you're going to hide this. So you'll be able to, maybe from your house or maybe from a local restaurant or something, watch this being painted as it is evolving into what it will become. So that's going to be pretty cool.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, Tim.
Paul? No, Mayor, I just approve that we authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for the Main Street Initiative Vibrancy Grant with the Union Silos project.
We have a motion by Paul, second by Mark. Any further discussion? Nothing further? Please call the roll.
Pittner.
Yes.
Padragula.
Yes.
Ross.
Yes.
Burlingame.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Janzer.
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Now let's move on to item 9 on the agenda. That is the time for personal appearances. If there's anybody out there who would like to address the council, now is your time.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Aaron Moss. I speak tonight on behalf of North Dakota Fraternal Order of Police, Service Valley Regional Lodge number 7 here in Minot. Just two things really quickly, and I will not prolong this meeting any longer. First and foremost, congratulations to Alderman Burlingame on his election and swearing in tonight. We're very happy to have supported your campaign. And also, I wanted to make the council and those watching these proceedings tonight that the annual Stuff a Squad event that is hosted by the Fraternal Police Lodge is taking place this weekend, Sunday, noon to 4 at Walmart Supercenter here in Minot. So if you're so inclined, if members of the community are so inclined, what we do there is we just accept donations of new unwrapped toys. We stuff them into patrol cars, and we'd also like to, as a lodge, thank Chief Klug for, again, allowing us to use department police cars for this purpose. And we're hoping to break our all-time record of six cars stuffed. And what we do with those donations at the end of the toy drive is to donate them evenly between Salvation Army and Community Action Partnership so that they could host free stores, so to speak, for communities for families in need in our community, should they need be in a situation where they couldn't afford toys for their children this holiday season. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Carrie?
So I would just like to offer my empathy for your injury that you suffered in the line of duty, and thank you for your service and for continuing to continue working while you're injured.
Thank you.
Mark?
Just a question for clarification. So there used to be a thing called Shop with a Cop that was also kind of at Christmas time. Is this a replacement kind of program for that, or does that also take place?
Mayor Ross and Alderman Janser, no, that is what we now call Cops and Kids. Historically, it was called Shop with a Cop, but there was some copyright issues with that name. But yes, that is still going to occur in December, and our lodge is working diligently with schools and social service programs to provide us the names of participants. We as a lodge do not choose who the recipients of that program. They're forwarded to us by those previous organizations I told you about, and that will occur in December. This is a separate event that we've been doing now. This will be our 6th annual, and Cops and Kids has now been in the neighborhood of 21, 22 years.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. I just wanted to get that out there.
Yes, sir.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you just give us the date and time on that again, Officer Moss?
Yes, Mayor Ross and Alderman Pittner. This will be occurring on this Sunday from noon to 4 at Walmart Supercenter.
Thank you.
Anything else? Steve?
Quick question. If we don't have any toys to donate or are unable to participate, would you be willing to accept a cash donation so you can purchase toys?
We do accept cash donations. We were kind of caught off guard the first time somebody offered them to us, but we weren't going to turn it away. And then what we do is we split those cash proceeds immediately between those two organizations.
Thank you.
I think you received a pretty big one today. Did you not? Or maybe I shouldn't have told you that. Never mind. Maybe it's coming, I don't know.
I won't turn one down.
Right.
We have been receiving donations
mouth
throughout the
insert
season, Mayor, for the Cops and Kids program, and we have been, and the generosity of the community has proven again to be just absolutely astounding, and we are so pleased to be able to participate in this manner at this time of year. So.
Anything else? Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else wishing to address the council? Come on up and state your name.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for your time. My name is Jeffrey Cool, and I'm a transplant to Minot, but this place is so magic. It really is a wonderful place to live. And I am a writer, entertainer, musician, artist, and comedian, and I am making Minot a main character in some of my work. And as I go around Minot, I do not drive, I ride your bus system. And I have noticed that there are some things about the bus system that are very difficult for the elderly population who uses that system. In particular, specifically, the bus stop up by Walmart is way too far from the store for the numerous elderly people who shop there. And me being one of them, I notice how much trouble they have, number one, getting off the bus when it snowed so deep, and number two, the very distance to the groceries, and then the distance that they have to transport those groceries back in order to make their shopping trip complete is very difficult on our people that are less mobile than I am. And I just wanted to bring that to your all's attention, as well as one other item on the bus. The bus is equipped with a scroll that goes across that tells people who maybe can't hear the announcement, but they can see, they can tell where they're at in our city. However, the scrawl for the Scandinavian Heritage Center is missing the S. So, as a visitor to Minot, and I see this come across the scroll, it just says Scandinavian Heritage Center. And being from Finland, originally, well, not me, but my 108-year-old grandmother who came over here is from Finland, and she would not be happy to know that that S is missing. And with that, I will close. Thank you very much for your time. Good evening.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the council? If not, we will move on to liaison reports.
What about miscellaneous and
Oh, I'm sorry,
discussion items, Mr.
miscellaneous. I
Mayor?
always miss that one. My bad. Miscellaneous discussion, anything. Carrie?
So following Officer Moss's, I just want to remind Minot that November 15th kicked off Twice Blessed, which is a regional program put on by St. Joseph Community Foundation, and hundreds of nonprofits serving people all across the region participate in the 45 days of giving. And so if you are inclined to give to your favorite nonprofit, go look and do it through the Twice Blessed program, because it gets matched dollar for dollar. So it's a really great program, has raised millions of dollars for nonprofits in our region in the time it has been doing. So just wanted to remind, we kicked it off last week in Minot, and we have till the end of the year to help the nonprofits in our community. So that's all I got.
Anything else? Anything? Now let's jump to liaison reports. Let's start with Lisa.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Got a couple of things to report on. I participated in the RFP interviews for the space needs assessment for the Minot Police Department, and I think that will be on one of our agendas coming up in December. I participated in the Xcel Energy staff meeting with our city staff, and as you had mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, this is done on an annual basis just to discuss future needs. I, along with Alderman Padrigula, visited the city department head meeting. I found this to be both informative and interesting, and I was kind of reminded how much prep work has to be completed in order for us as a council to be able to make timely and informed decisions. And I was also reminded that the work of the city is being done by very caring and committed professionals, so thank you for all that you do. I participated in the monthly Service-Based and Loan Review Committee meeting, and late last week attended the MAC-EDC Joint Government Affairs and Energy Committee meeting, and our guest speaker there was Katie Ralston-Howe, who is the Director of Workforce Division with the North Dakota Department of Commerce, and her talk was very interesting and encouraging for us as residents in Minot, so thank you.
Thank you. Carrie?
Nothing library. So folks are going to see a new children's library in 2023 over at Minot Public Library, and Janet and her staff over there are meeting with architects and designing, and it's going to be, and the board last week was shown sort of the preliminary outlines for that, and it's going to be amazing. I mean, I think grown-ups will want to go hang out there too. Ward County Planning, we're keeping on. That's all I got.
Okay. Steve?
Thank you. The Commission on Aging report is in the minutes that are, or the agendas that are attached. I, for the second month in a row, missed it because of doctoring in Fargo. Makes me appreciate the traffic flow in Minot when I go to places like Fargo and try to drive there. Anyway, the one meeting I did attend in terms of liaison activities was the Emergency Resource Council. It was the last meeting that Jennifer Wickman, the former head of the Ward County Emergency Management, chaired. She's moved on to greener or drier pastures in Colorado, and they're looking for a new director there. But we had a very interesting, very informative presentation by a representative from the Association of Counties, not the League of Cities, talking about the 911 system and how that's grown and the problems it's had and what they're trying to do to take care of them. I never realized how complex the system was, and when we have problems that affect local services, they are often occurring far away and in places and things totally out of our control. Found out that basically all 911 services are handled out of centers in Colorado and Florida, and that our calls go through there and various other switching and control points and then end up coming back to Minot. So when you pick up the phone, it's not our dispatcher who initially gets it. It's a whole series of people, which opens up possibilities for failure. But I was just astonished how complex the system is and how many parts it has, and how we're often at the mercy of technology and contractors and people who dig up the soil in places all over the country. But the county association is working very hard to try to improve, and the people involved in the system who consist of private contractors, various quasi-governmental organizations, and even governmental organizations are working very hard to make the system more robust and more resilient. So I have a renewed appreciation for how complex this all is and how lucky we are to have 911 services in our community. So that's basically what I have to report.
Thank you, Steve. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Attended a Visit Minot board meeting. We approved our first reading of our budget at that meeting. Good things. A board subsidiary of that, the Tourism Recovery and Resiliency board that I sit on, that the City of Minot has with an enterprise agreement with the city, or with Visit Minot, to help enhance and recruit events to the City of Minot. Again, is doing good things. We have an economic impact expectation of $10 million into the community direct spend by the end of 2023, which we are on track with the events that we have on the books right now. We are on track to exceed that number. Magic Fund Ad Hoc Committee, some of that was touched on in the city manager's report, but again, good things happening there. Should have something in front of council. It's to the point where it's under legal review. So should be good things coming to the council from that. Our weekly TIF meetings that we hold in regards to the TRACS program, I've attended those, and hopefully winding down on that. It's been a long process, but again, a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And then also as well as the workforce development meeting that Alderwoman Olson touched on.
Thank you, Paul. Mark?
Mr. Mayor, no meetings to report on this time around.
Thank you, Mark. Scott?
I haven't had any since I was, sworn in.
I had to offer it up for it. And my liaison report was included in my mayor's report today, so. Nothing else. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Enjoy.